Hi, Sally Walker here, your hormone and slow age expert. So what's all this about postmenopausal extra weight? A very important subject, lady, isn't it? Because how we look affects how we feel, and many ladies complain about the extra kilos after menopause. And some ladies just complain about that where we store the fat has changed or it's moved, and it's all on the tummies. Yes. So what's all this about? Well, it has a lot to do, obviously, with the hormone insulin, the hormone cortisol, and the hormone estrogen. Yeah, those three. It's a cocktail, really. So estrogen's declining. Insulin is now not as effective in its little job, which is clearing up your blood glucose, as it was before, because estrogen holds its hand, really. It helps it, yeah. And then there's cortisol. So cortisol and estrogen are a match made in heaven when there's enough of estrogen and not too much cortisol. But what happens after menopause is that estrogen levels decline radically, but cortisol doesn't. So we get the imbalance there. So cortisol is a very important hormone, but it's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, so we get too much of it, we're going to get a lot of tissue breakdown, like skin tissue, collagen especially, and we're also going to get an increased blood sugar. And you get an increased blood sugar, then you have an increased need of insulin, which is not working properly because of the low estrogen. You can get the picture. Hey, So there are many different things, but diet change is important. So as your body changes as you age, your diet needs to change as well. And the most important thing on the list of changes is watching your carbs, okay? Now, all carbohydrate, if it's a starch, if it's sugar, I don't care what you're calling it, bread, pasta, rice, leafy greens, I don't care what you're calling them. All carbohydrate will end as glucose. It's just a question of how much, okay? And glucose is going to end in your blood and increase your blood glucose levels, or your liver's going to have to store some of it because it can't send it out because there's already too much in there. So then it may convert it to fat and store it, etc., or send the fat out into the system. Yeah. So you get the picture. So you really need to curb the carbs. So my recommendations about those 30-40 grams per meal as often as possible, and I would say definitely 2 of the meals in the day should be with the low carbohydrate. Maybe another meal you could have and get away with a little bit more, but it will all be very individual. So you're going to have to monitor yourself and don't listen to what everyone else is doing. How much carbohydrate you might tolerate might be different to your sister or your best friend or etc., okay? But in general, most ladies need to get way much less carbohydrate than they are doing so at the moment. That will make a dramatic change. The other biggie that you need to get more of is protein. So protein is really, really important. We want to build our collagen, we want to build our muscle tissue and maintain these structural tissues so that we age better. And the more muscle tissue you have, girls, then the better your blood sugar control is going to be as well. So it all fits in nicely together, doesn't it? Yes. We also want to make sure we're getting lots of very healthy fats. Now, related to estrogen in the brain, and if you look at the article we'll call Post-menopause and Dementia, you will understand that because of this glucose problem, because of the low estrogen and insulin going wacky, then the brain, which loves to have glucose, now needs to find a different energy source. So the brain can't use fat, but it can use ketones. So normally the liver would break down the fats to the ketones will be transported to the brain, and the brain will be happy at periods of time where blood glucose was a little bit low. But as we go through menopause, it can't wait. So what does it do? It starts breaking down its own fat. Oh my goodness me, that's not a good thing. All your white matter starts disappearing. And there are studies with PET scans which are demonstrating this quite clearly. So we know also that the brain will readily make ketones from certain fatty acids. And one of them are the MCTs, so the medium chain triglycerides, the fats that are very much in coconut oils and things like this. But we also know that the omega-3 fatty acids, the ones called ALA and the one called EPA, It will also readily break down to make ketones, okay? So the DHA, which is also an omega-3 fatty acid, the brain uses this structurally. So the little cell membranes on the brain cells or the nerve cells, have the membranes composed of DHA and another fatty acid, omega-6 fatty acid called AA. So we don't want it breaking down those, do we? Because obviously we want our structural part of our brain to survive. So you want to make sure that you're getting lots of MCT oils and getting lots of omega-3 fatty acids, possibly going for a flaxseed oil rather than, well, you can go for a fish oil. You just want to make sure that there's good amounts of EPA in there so that the brain has fuel to make the ketones, so you don't break down too much of your own brain. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So there is an article down there called Post-menopause and Diet Changes. So have a little look there, because there are other things like B vitamins and magnesium and things, and there's lots of other little bits of information. So have a look at the article and just make sure that you are eating what you need to eat to age well. Age well with passion, strength, vitality, all those things, ladies. You remember, you've got another 30 years or more in front of you, so we need to get the most out of it, don't we? Happy hormones, happy life.